Welcome everyone to part 2 of the climate advocate training. Last week, we learned about Citizens Climate International. We did a lot of work on carbon pricing, and your homework was to practice the climate income laser talk. And this week, we're going to practice lobbying, group development, and tracking your metrics. One last thing. Citizens Climate Lobby is not against anything. We are for a price on carbon pollution. For some of you in countries, your focus might be slightly different, but if you stay focused in on one thing, that's really helpful. This is also called climate income. So would someone be brave enough to describe climate income or carbon fee and dividend? This was the homework. Does anybody want to try to do that? And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
So I'll describe it in very simple sentence by saying, put a price on pollution and give the money back to the people.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's excellent. Yes. Does anybody have any questions about it?
I see Roger's hand up. Roger, you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Kathy and Mike. I'm not necessarily putting a hands up. I'm just trying to clap hands for you, Mike, for explaining what is carbon pricing. Thank you.
Wonderful. Oh, there it is. Climate income is generating money from harm we are causing on nature, and it's returning it to humankind. Oh, that's a really good way of saying it, Frederick. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Carbon pricing is various policies to make it in the way that pollution become very expensive and tax are being received from those that are making the pollution and giving revenue to others that pollute less of carbon.
Oh, that's a good way of saying it. Yes. You know, and people with middle or lower incomes do tend to pollute a lot less than the very high income people amongst us. Joseph, yes, please.
Yeah, so for me, carbon pricing is simply taking the money from polluters and giving it to ordinary citizens that need it most. Thank you.
Yep, that's pretty much what we're advocating for. Okay. So one last review. So we have two names for this policy. It's called carbon fee and dividend. It's what we focus on. So we place a fee on fossil fuels at the source, the mine, the well, or the point of entry of that when that fossil fuel enters the economy. These are in American dollars. I don't know what the equivalent would be in your various countries, but you start at $15 a ton for carbon equivalent and increase $10 a ton going annually. You return the net revenues to households, equally protecting the lower and middle class. And ultimately, there will be border carbon adjustments on goods imported and exported from countries without an equivalent price. And for those of you who are very curious, there are going to be common but differentiated responsibilities with regards to border carbon adjustments. So African countries will have a much lower threshold than countries like Canada and the United States and the European Union and Japan. Okay, so today we're going to lobby for carbon pricing. That's why I really wanted to review this at the beginning. And we focus on building the political will for a livable world. lobbying for something very specific that will reduce emissions or alleviate poverty or protect the people is like being very specific for that and staying focused on that is a means to an end. It's how you get to that livable world. So we train how to lobby for carbon pricing, and we also focus on other activities that will bring citizens into the political process and create constructive change as possible. So yes, we lobby. We build the relationships with our elected officials. We work with media, and we can train you how to do that. We do grassroots outreach. A wonderful program just ran during the election in Nigeria, a nonpartisan grassroots outreach to get people to vote and think about the climate. It was an excellent program. It got noticed by the BBC. This is the sort of things we love to see being done to educate your fellow citizens and empower them to be involved in a polite and healthy way in their democracy. You develop your group and you do grass tops engagement. And if you stay with us more, we can train you on how to do each of these ones even more. But as you organize yourself, be sure to make sure that you bucketing your work into these 5 buckets, and it makes your life a lot easier. So last week we discussed that we are citizen lobbyists, not experts. And we talked about how they differ and what does that mean for your tactics. And it means that you don't need to know everything. It means that the politicians are hearing from citizens, which they rarely do, and they need to hear that. And you bring the voice of the people up to your politician, and that helps strengthen your democracy. So it takes the pressure off. You do not have to be an expert. What you're trying to do is get politicians to the next level and understanding how to help your country move forward through this climate problem that we're in. So we're going to spend the next 6 to 7 minutes discussing the way in which we do this. So when we speak to politicians, we don't go into the room and start telling them what, educating them about and telling them what they need to do, unless they ask us. We use a series of questions to help discover and unfold how we can move forward on a particular policy. We use a very specific technique. It's called motivational interviewing. So instead of just demanding from a politician what you want, you start asking questions. And you're trying to elicit behavior so you can find common ground and move forward together. So here are the basic steps of motivational interviewing. First of all, you get permission to start a topic. So when you meet with a politician, you have already set up an appointment to talk about, specifically, for many of you, that will be carbon pricing. For others, I understand it might be something different, but make sure it's very laser focused what you're going to talk about. So today we're going to focus in on carbon pricing. So the politician knows that you're going to talk about climate income. And then you explain climate income. And then you start asking what we call the W questions, the how, who, what, when, and where questions, and avoid the why. So you start asking questions about climate income, so as to figure out what the politician knows, what barriers lie ahead. Keep it very open-ended questions and you're trying to help them understand what barriers are in the way and what you can do together to move forward together. Avoid why questions, because that will elicit very long answers that politicians will give that will can often get off topic. So here's an example. You go in, you explain carbon fee and dividend, and then you can ask questions like, how much did you know about this policy, or what questions do you have about this policy, or where do you think this policy in the government might be best to bring this to, or when do you think we could, work out a timeline of trying to get this through government? So you ask, or who in government is best to bring this policy to? So the idea is to get the other person talking, and the politicians should be doing most of the talking.
Thank you very much, Kathy, for such a great presentation. With regards to the motivational interview, of course, you made mention of the question type,
Yes.
the who, what, and where. I just want to know why the reason for us not to ask the why.
Okay, so because you always get a long answer, you will get a very philosophical answer often. Like why is more like it doesn't give a concrete answer. You often get a very abstract answer, and what you're trying to do is get after concrete barriers and that might be in the way. So for example, if you ask a question, why do you think the government can or cannot enact this policy? They can often go on way too long. Does that make sense, Henry?
No, they will skew the interview.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to add a bit to your response to Henry regarding the why. I think when you ask the question why, it puts the both of you in the other divide. One, the person will be on the other side while you are on the other side. But the idea is for us to work together. So that's the idea, I guess, for the motivational interviewing. You are to connect together, but when you use the question why, it's like you are already on one side and he is on the other side. So it's like not giving the interactive connection that is required for the motivational interviewing. That's just my take on that, actually.
Oh, I think you nailed it. It
Thank
does.
you very much.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Wonderful. I love when people teach each other and put it into their own context. There are so many layers to that answer that we need to give. So Jeremiah, that explained it from another angle, and you got it perfectly. Thank you. Any other questions or comments about motivational interviewing?
Sorry for
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to.
I wanted to ask that. I think maybe sometimes why could also be used, whereas you are involving both of yourself. As you say, you should connect together, but you can use why in certain instances, like why don't we do this? When you say why don't you do this, which means you are involving yourself. Why don't we find solutions to maybe carbon pricing? Why don't we, all get involved? I don't know whether I'm making sense or something like that.
Yeah, We just avoid why to make sure that we don't get these long answers or an answer that won't get us to a confusing ending, or also we don't want to pit ourselves against each other or bring ourselves in there. We want to have a more general answer. Tabitha?
Yes.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Tabitha.
Thank you for this session. It was very informative. However, I have a concern. I've happened to interact with a lot of policymakers in Kenya because of the kind of work I do in the political space. So
Yes.
I just wanted to understand more in case of a motivational interview, and this politician clearly does not understand, for example, carbon pricing, and I'm supposed to make them speak more than I am, and they don't understand the topic of context. How do I approach this scenario? Thank you.
Oh, that's a beautiful question, Tabitha. You're right. In many barriers, the first barrier that many politicians are going to have is a knowledge barrier. So when we go to lobby a politician, we have a set agenda. We introduce ourselves, then we appreciate something about the politician, and then we make our ask. And we briefly describe carbon pricing and the policy that we want. And then we start asking questions. I'll show you the agenda, and then you'll begin to understand the bigger picture here. So the first thing we do, even before we have an appointment with a politician, is we get to know them first. And you want to search everything about them. Some politicians may know about carbon pricing or whatever policy that you're advocating for, and others may not. So this is a great way to get to know about them. Search their websites, their social media, the government websites, everything, and be sure to include the contact information of everyone that you're speaking with in their office, and then you share it with your team. Then once you've done your research, you phone and email. So you always phone and then email. Don't just email. You phone the office and then you email. And if you have to, you can leave a voicemail, and always follow it up with an email. And I don't know if how this applies in I think many African countries. I don't know if your politicians directly represent you. So if you are living in their constituency, you can identify yourself as one if you elect them directly. And then be sure to mention you're with Citizens Climate International. Because we want them to know that you're not working alone. You are supported by an international team that does this work regularly. And, here in Canada, and I know in Nigeria, it's beginning to happen. Our government knows about us, and politicians are beginning to respect the work that we do. So when you go into a meeting, everybody has a role. So somebody will be the leader, somebody will be the appreciator, another person will ask how much time we have, another person takes notes and discussion, another person does the ask, and then there's people who deliver, follow up, and take pictures, and sometimes there's people who observe. And sometimes you have to be ready to take on multiple roles. So make sure everybody knows their role in the meeting, especially who is the note taker, who's going to ask how much time there is, who's to appreciate, and the lobby lead does all that, and who's going to make the ask. And this is how a meeting runs. In the beginning of the meeting, you thank the politician for meeting with you today. You ask, how much time do you have? You make your introductions, then you appreciate something that the politician has done, and you state your purpose or ask. So that's the first part. And then in the middle, you start with the motivational interviewing questions, and you're trying to move the politician forward That's MP, member of parliament. I don't know if you have Westminster democracies, but a politician forward, and then at the end you clarify. So after you state what you're asking for, then in the middle part, you ask questions. So you will come up with 2 or 3 motivational interviewing questions. And then in the end, you make plans for follow-up. So make sure that they understand what you're asking for, when will you meet again, and then you take a photo. Okay. And we'll design a couple questions. So we're going to do this together as a group. Welcome. Thank you for being here today. I'm so glad you're here to join, to talk with me. I'm concerned about the climate crisis, and it is so nice to hear from citizens. Please introduce yourselves.
Good day, Honorable Kathy. We are members of Citizens Climate International Africa, and we are here to speak with you. I will just give an opportunity for my colleagues to introduce themselves. My name is Joseph Ibrahim, and I am from Nigeria. So my other colleagues, please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. My name is Rogers Lungu from CCL Malawi. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tabitha Wangeshi, and I'm a lobbyist from Climate International. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Honorable. We are glad. Before we continue, I will want to ask, how much time do we have?
We have a full hour. I really want to learn more about what you're doing. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate that you are giving us so much time to engage with you. At this point, I'll call on my colleague here, Clement, to speak.
Okay, so I'm appreciating, right?
Yes, you are.
Yes,
say something
you are.
nice.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Environmental Minister, for having time for us. We also thank you for organizing the Clean Up Ghana just last week, planting trees and, cleaning the environment. In fact, planting trees is a very good thing that helps, clean the environment. And we really appreciate that, Mr. Minister.
Well, I thank you for your appreciation. It's good to be noticed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Yeah, go ahead, Rogers.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and also my colleagues who have come along together to meet with you. So I just wanted to find out from you, Honorable Minister, as to what initiatives is your office or your ministry or your council doing on issues related to carbon pricing or carbon dividends in our country. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Can you tell me a little bit more about climate income, so I'm confident that I know what you're talking about, please?
Thank you, Your Honorable Minister. My pleasure. I will just need to explain a bit more about carbon pricing. So this is an initiative that at Citizens Climate Lobby we are trying to do in lobbying the political powers I mean, we are lobbying the political leaders on issues to do with carbon pricing, whereby, you know, with the where our environment is being deteriorated and being misused in terms of carbon emissions. This is an initiative that Citizens Carbon Lobby is lobbying the political leaders to make sure that all the greenhouse emissions and all the inputs that are coming through into our country can be reduced in terms of putting up a fee even through the borders and everything that can destroy our environment. And then the carbon fee that is going to be collected can be channeled to the middle and low income citizens so that it can help them into assisting them in buying any various resources that they can buy in terms of using gases. So this is basically about carbon pricing. And so basically we're here to lobby with you if it is possible that as your ministry, you can implement through our borders so that with the monies that is being collected, it can be channeled to the citizens of the current economy to help them, subsidize them in buying of gases and buying of carbon-free resources. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Rogers, for that brilliant explanation of the policy. But I clearly remember as I was doing my research on your profile, my Honorable Minister, I found out that you're much involved in the carbon policy and you spoke about it at COP27. So I just wanted to ask, how much do you know about this policy? Can you kindly explain to my team? Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Tabitha. Yes, I did speak about it at COP27. Yes, I am part of various international groups that talk about carbon pricing and study carbon pricing. And I know that countries all around the world are pricing carbon pollution as a means to transition their economy. And I know that Canada and Austria have a policy of which you were which Rogers was talking about, that where they put a price on pollution and give the money, the revenues back to the people. So I thank you. That's my understanding, and I.
So my question will be, what kind of support can Africa get for the carbon pricing policy that is taking place across the world?
Okay. And then maybe we'll take one more question from Tabitha after that. It seems like she wanted to say something. The World Bank has a program that, this is the truth actually, just so you know, the World Bank has a program for implementing carbon pricing, and countries like Canada and the European Union have a fund upon which we can study carbon pricing in our own countries. So getting this information from you will help us design the best carbon pricing policy for our country. So thank you for your information. And Tabitha, do you have a question?
I just want to know what level are you playing at the local at the local level, for example, in the National Assembly, are you pushing for the for adoption of best practices in the policy of carbon pricing? How much work are you putting in at the national level, even if we see you doing a lot of work at the international level? Thank you.
So Tabitha, that is an excellent question. So we know what's happening internationally. There's lots of support out there to help our countries transition and price pollution. But we also need to work at the local level to make sure the people understand what is happening. So at the national level, what we're doing right now is designing the programs that our country needs. So your information that you bring to us is really important as we, I'm going to pretend I'm Kenyan right now because you just got a new government, Tabitha. As we, design our way out of this mess that we're in, the information that you bring to us will help us develop our national policy. So we really appreciate the knowledge and the insights citizens give to us, because we cannot do this without you. Thank you very much.
So can I ask last question?
Sure, Henry, this is good. We're going over time and we're going to be about 5 minutes late. Okay, go.
Of course, you spoken a lot about the carbon policy, carbon pricing policy that you've developed. So I want to know what your plans in popularizing this policy and to make people who are at the grassroots aware of this policy. How do you intend to popularize the carbon pricing policy? Thank you.
Oh, Henry, that is such a critical thing a government must do when they enact a policy. The most important thing that this policy will do is by giving income back to the people and helping them understand that it's coming from greenhouse gas pollution sources, is we will have social media campaigns and public campaigns. And even when that money gets deposited into your bank accounts, we'll make sure that people understand where the money is coming from. So yes, if gasoline prices do go up, but you're getting this income, then you will know that we're doing our best to offset both of those at the same time. But we need your help too. And any advice you could give us, it would be greatly appreciated. This was excellent. Actually, I thought this was really good. Personally, I thought it was very effective. I thought you understood the motivational interviewing questions really well. And you've shown great insights into.
Okay, I thought no one was speaking, so I wanted to ask those who participated, like one person to just share briefly how they feel, playing that role, and if there's any, thanks.
So this was great. So how did you feel? I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. So Tabitha, how did you feel doing this?
I felt challenged more than the politician because I was not prepared. But it was a really fun session and also a nerve-wracking session to just imagine that you're sitting on one table with one of your lawmakers that you only see on TV. So it's a very great opportunity, and I felt like I need to really prepare if at all I'm ever going to get into a real scenario like this and come up with really good questions. So otherwise, it was a very good practical session. It helped me understand more about motivational interviewing and also carbon policy.
It's a wonderful reflection. And Tabitha, when you go to lobby, we can provide even more training, or you can sit with me you can consult with myself or Mike. We'd be honored to help, and we'd love to see Kenya and all African countries seeing their citizens engage with their governments in a healthy way. So thank you for, and you rose to the challenge, Tabitha. Who else? Rogers, go ahead. You're
I
welcome.
want to observe just a quick one. This is Jeremiah. In fact, kudos to all that participated in the role, because it's not easy to just pick up a role and then act almost immediately. That was a wonderful, and everyone put up there. However, I just want to make an observation regarding the kind of questions we might be asking the politician. We should be careful not to ask him the questions, the kind of questions that he is expecting us to enlighten him about. Like the last person that asked a question, that I can't really get the question now, but that question to me is something that we should be the one telling the politician if at all he asks a question. And then the other part again, I want to suggest, if there is a room for the politician to, in as much as we are the one doing the questioning, motivational interviewing, we could give him the room to ask more questions, if at all, because on the agenda, there is no much room, though it's going to be an interactive session with him. I guess at that point, he could maybe ask questions, but we should also give him a leading scenario by asking him that, do you have more or any question for us, kind of. So I think it's just a suggestion. I think I just want to throw out here. Thank you.
Yeah, you can do that. I mean, and every group will do it differently. And every time you meet with a different politician, you would do it differently. But yes, that is something that needs to be considered. And yeah, that's why you meet with your group beforehand, before you lobby, to make sure you know exactly what 2 or 3 questions you want to make sure that you ask. And then, okay, so Rogers.
Yeah. Hello, can I talk?
Yes, please, go ahead, Rogers.
Okay, thank you so much, Kathy. So for me, I think because I participated in this, I felt like I wasn't really prepared to get a question like for me to explain exactly what is carbon pricing, carbon policy issues, because I think it took me off guard. I wasn't prepared. The politician will ask that question, because the assumption was that maybe the politician knows everything. He knows about the issues of carbon policy or carbon pricing. And so what I think is that, like the way the rest of the participants mentioned, is that I think we just need to get prepared. We need to do our homeworks well and get prepared, so that if in case a question comes, then we can be able to take it up. So I just wanted to comment like that. Thank you, Kathy.
Oh, Rogers, I think that you did an excellent job just doing it off the cuff. You sounded professional, and I hope you go back and listen to yourself. All of you did an excellent job, every single one of you. And remember, you're just citizens, and take the pressures off yourself, and know that before you go lobby, you spend about an hour with your group, determining what exact questions do you want to ask, what will be the agenda. And you will go through scenarios. But at the end of the day, what you're trying to do here is develop a relationship with your politician and become a trusted source for them. So I'm just asking, because we're running out of time, and I do want to end very quickly here. Is there any last reflections from those who did the role playing?
About the, review the questions and make sure we are well prepared before going to ask the minister. And also we need to be mindful that it is a golden opportunity to interview the minister, because these are people who are very, very busy. So seeing it as an opportunity, and you have to make the best use of it, make sure that the right questions are asked and you're able to get maybe the right answer. But it is fulfilling to have that opportunity to ask that burning question to those people who are policymakers, who are at the edge of our institutions. It is highly fulfilling to find yourself being interviewing someone like the minister. Thank you.
Henry, I could not agree more.
I wanted to also ask.
Yeah, go ahead, Clement, please.
Yeah, like what's the difference between being fully prepared and also acting as if you don't know anything? Because that is what we are trying to do. As if we don't know anything, we are asking people's questions that are pertaining to the environment, questions that will help solve these carbon issues. But what is the difference between being prepared? So if you are preparing fully to go and ask this minister these questions, and you are acting as if you don't know anything, you are asking the questions from people's perspective. Please, if you could clarify this a little bit for me.
Well, that's a really good question. And I'm going to take you back to what we do when we prepare. Okay, so when you get a meeting with a politician, even before you do that, you research everything. So you should have a good understanding of what their background is. And you should have a basic understanding of where your government stands on the policy, what you're advocating for. So today we talked about carbon pricing. So you should know where they stand. So before you go lobby, literally this piece here takes about 5 hours for one person to do. They do the research and they bring it back to the group, and then you discuss it and you research and you do your, you understand it, and then you develop your lobbying plan. So when you lobby, it's about 5 to 10 hours of work, even before you go in the room. So it's a little bit of homework, but as David said, like, it is so empowering. It's so empowering. So we've role played a meeting, and know that we do other things in support of this lobbying. And every single month we do something. We don't lobby every month. And so when you join us, internationally we're giving actions, but your group, you should try to get them to do at least one action a month together. Like go out into the community, do some research, or do some research on a politician, or get ready to lobby, or learn about media training and maybe do some media work. So every month, try to have one action. So by the time you go to lobby, which will take about 4 to 6 months after you've been trained, you've been doing all the things that you need to do. And then you track your progress. And David, Michael, and I will be giving you, it's really important that you track your of your group. So we have a way of tracking that data. And if you look, there's we have a data tracking tool. And then lastly, a big question that people often ask is, how do you become the national leader? Because currently, many of you are local chapter leaders. So you develop your local group first. Make sure you've got that solidly developing, that they're doing the pulling on the 5 levers of political will, and you're doing an action every month. And then you start to recruit other chapters and you help get them trained. And then you develop a national plan together, and where everybody agrees who's doing what. And then you track your progress in our database. That's really important, and we'll give you that information shortly. And then most importantly, I, as a national leader in Canada, was not considered the national leader until I conducted a national conference. And I was not designated that until I did that. And so so for now, many of you are local leaders, but ultimately, if you want to become your national leader, these are the steps. And we provide all sorts of training, like so much training, like whatever you need, we're here for you. It's how to be a local spokesperson for our organization, how to write letters to the editor, how to write columns, navigating CCL community. And, you know, this is one of the things you can be doing with your group, how to create a plan for your group. If your country is heading into an election, Canada runs Vote Climate campaigns, and Nigeria took that, what we learned in Canada, and transposed it to the Nigerian experience. And David Michael had some great success with that, including getting their Vote Climate campaign onto the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. So we provide you all sorts of training, and that's it. That is it.